Welcome, everyone, and welcome to the Nvla webinar, What Does Winning Look Like in Today's Remarketing World? I'm Doug Moore. I'm on the Nvla board. I'm the past president, and I'm moderating today with a couple of very interesting guests, Holly Vallant from Carlots and Gary Mott from FLD. You know, over the last 2.5 years, we have experienced a whole year of change almost every 2 weeks. And what worked yesterday no longer works today. One thing that's certain and proven is that the vehicle leasing industry in North America is resilient. And remarketing has always been key to what we do as lessors. Our business cycle isn't completed until we remarket our asset. So what better way to take today's temperature in remarketing than to talk to a couple of people who are winners in remarketing? Holly Vallant and Gary Mott. Gary, could you introduce yourself and tell us about your company, what you do? And then Holly, if you could do the same thing.
Sure. Thanks, Doug. And thanks for the opportunity to be here with the Nvla today. I do appreciate that. FLD, which is Fleet Lease Disposal, we're a 43-year-old brand in the remarketing space. And what we do is we provide end-to-term solutions to various different types of fleet-oriented organizations, whether they're doing a fleet of commercial trucks or service vans or even forklifts. We're in there to understand how their business model works, what their life cycle is for these assets, and what strategy they use currently and what's been the best use. And then we put a custom mix together for them. And I serve as the president for the company, and I've been with the company now, I think it's 30 years.
Okay, thank you. Holly.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Doug. Again, kind of echoing Gary, appreciate being here today and just having the opportunity to chat with you guys about what we've been going through and what we're finding that works and has been successful for us. So I'm Holly Vallant. I'm the Senior VP of Retail Remarketing with Carlots. Carlots has been around about 11 years now, and I've been with the company a little over 4. We offer retail solutions for remarketing companies. We work with fleet management companies, commercial sellers, rental car companies, anyone in the remarketing space that's looking for another alternative channel to remarket their inventory. And we have the ability to touch it from a retail standpoint in our physical hubs and locations, and also from a wholesale standpoint.
Okay, thank you. And we really appreciate your support of Nvla and our members and participating in the webinar today. So let's talk about what are winning fleet operators doing in 2022 that's different from what they did in 2019. Holly, can you let us know?
Yeah, I think as a whole, we've gotten more curious. We've been forced into a position where we're looking for alternative channels, alternative resources, other ways to, not just extend the life of some of our inventory and the vehicles that we need to keep out on the road because maybe we can't replace them with new units, or ways that when it is end of life or end of use for, those fleet managers, to make sure that they're getting and maximizing every dollar of retention that's out there on that inventory, and really, looking a little bit deeper about what that unit is, what is the best channel. I think gone are the days of just having one channel that you remarket inventory through. Everybody needs to make sure that they're making the best decision with what assets they do have. And that may mean traditional wholesale through a brick and mortar auction. It may be an online platform. It may be sending retail eligible units to Carlots and selling them through a retail platform and being able to maximize that additional retention.
Are there some things that used to work that don't work anymore?
There's a lot of things that used to work. We can talk about our, how we predict and setting residuals that, kind of fall apart at the end. I think, the end of the day, we've learned that we need to be flexible, and, doing what we've always done isn't providing the same outcome or the same results. Maybe it means, previously you were locked into a set 36-month turn on every unit. that may not work. Maybe because we can't get that new unit, or there may be a window where the value is actually higher in that unit, if we hold it to 40 months. Or if we find another way, I've seen, some great commercial sellers and fleet managers that are kind of passing on their fleet. You know, it may not work for their fleet anymore. The mileage may be too high to meet their standards, but there may be another smaller fleet out there that can utilize that inventory for the next stage of its life cycle.
It's interesting when you talk about residuals. I work with independent lessors and moderate performance groups. And when we talk about residuals, you always have members in the groups who prune their feathers and are quite proud of the fact that they quote unquote make money at the end of the lease. And I've always said to them, that's only showing how far out you were on the residual. There's two sides to that coin. What do we do in today's market? We don't even talk about residuals because it really is a non-issue, as you say, the marketplace right now. Gary, what do you see happening out there in 2022 that's different than 2019?
Well, I agree with what Holly said. I think gone are those days that where we used to get locked into, we would go RFP and then we would do contract. We were going to sole source with, a specific vendor, whether it was through the acquisition or the management of it, or even the marketing side of it. All widgets don't need to go through the same process. And the same is true for remarketing. You're the one, 10 years ago, we are just dumping everything at auto auctions and, it's going to sell, it's going to sell. There's so many different upstream ways to sell those vehicles, and it always has been there. But I think now with post-pandemic life that we're living here, fleet managers or fleet operators are looking at these other avenues even more to take advantage of the retail pricing of what you're able and capable of selling these vehicles to the public, because there is such a pent-up demand. Having that multi-tiered, that multi-spoke approach to that end of term activity, I think is what making most fleet operators look viable in front of their companies.
Okay. And Gary, can you give me a practical example or somebody in particular who's doing something different than they used to do that's working for them?
Yeah, sure. I have a couple of examples that they're doing. One thing we've learned through this pandemic, and we're going to be continuously plagued with this, is that supply chain. And supply chain is different for each one of our customers. And I think as we start seeing these domestic companies start to reshore a lot of their activities here stateside, I think we're going to get some normalcy back into that supply chain. But what we've had as normal policies from some of these fleet operators, if the vehicle was in an accident previously, it was to get that vehicle debranded, title out of their name, and then push that through an insurance or a Copart auto auction standpoint. What we're doing now for them is actually marshaling some of the body parts that they need on some of the more severely damaged vehicles, and they're creating their own supply chain of used parts to keep what they do have operable and presentable from a marketing standpoint and a branding standpoint. So that's become a really unique idea. I think there's other things that have shifted is instead of acquiring all, I'm loyal to Ford, or I'm loyal to GM, or whoever your brand of choice was, when you were sourcing those new vehicles for acquisition, I think now you're going to see more people going to, I just need a 1-ton, this type of vehicle. I don't care whose, nameplate's going to be on the front of it. So there's been a little bit of a scattering as far as not all within one product line, but those are some of the strategies that we're seeing. And then again, not to bring up the pain of this, but the catalytic converters on some of these wrecked vehicles, they're pulling those off too, just to have a surplus of those to be, used, in case they're one of their locations gets struck.
When we go to our conference in Tucson in October, one attraction in Tucson that's pretty popular is the airplane boneyard, where they've got all the old airplanes. And Gary, you're talking about having an auto boneyard specific to a fleet operator. I mean, I can remember playing in a junkyard as a kid, but this is specific to an operator. I think that's a very, very interesting development. Holly?
You know what it's reminiscent of me for, and this is kind of how we always talk about everything being so cyclical in our industry. But I know back when Xerox and other entities, I think Tupperware was another one, where they were running those cargo or minivans, and they were really getting dinged on not having that third row seat in the back because they were only buying 5 passengers. So they changed their strategy, say, all right, we're going to buy 7 passengers, but now we're going to pull those seats out, store those until it's time for end of term. And the lift they got just for, marshaling those, you never thought of it, but you're just
Been
marshaling
there.
the third row
Yep.
seat and then applying, putting it back in at the back. And that's kind of the same kind of tenacity we're having right now with the fleet operators.
Well, also when they stopped putting the plain panel in the back side window of the minivans, and they put glass all around, and I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning, or maybe even in the shower, I thought, well, let's just take a vinyl decal. See, I'm from Canada, a vinyl decal, and put it over, and that's sort of commonplace today. Holly, what do you see out there with the people that you work with? What ideas have you seen?
Sure. So, a couple of things, and Gary kind of touched on the one of really seeing this new diversification of the fleets, of the models, and the manufacturers that they're bringing in. And I think at the beginning it was probably forced because that was all that was available, and we're still seeing a little bit of that. But we're actually seeing some of these fleet managers and operators taking the opportunity to further diversify their fleet. Not only are they providing a greater selection of inventory, we're seeing a lot of higher trim models being ordered than they previously would have before. Everybody wanted the base model Ford Explorer for every pharmaceutical rep out there, and that's not what they're getting now. Obviously Ford's not building a lot of base models, so they've been forced into higher trim levels, or sourcing from a different manufacturer. And it's changing the way they look at the fleet. Obviously it's changing the residuals, and it's forcing those fleet managers to really expand out. There's new education that's coming in because the people that are typically handling these through the life of the vehicle, whether it's from a maintenance standpoint, even diving into the insurance spectrum of the rates and how they vary in some of this different inventory, but really a great opportunity for them to learn. And they're going to be able to track it now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now, as they're looking at, we're already seeing, and I'm already hearing back from some that have been very pleasantly surprised with some of, the smaller manufacturers that they're sourcing inventory from now, and going, man, like the maintenance costs have actually been lower. Or, some have been good surprises, but some have been, unfortunate. But we're learning so much more about, the life cycle of those vehicles in a fleet model, where a lot of them hadn't been into the fleet space before. So I think there's a huge opportunity there, and I think we're going to see a change in how sourcing is done going forward, and what vehicles are ordered, because I think they're going to get to the end, and there's definitely going to be an opportunity to see how those higher trim levels perform. They're not just going to flood the market with a large fleet of base model inventory coming out. We'll have that diversity and be able to get them better retentions at the end of that life cycle, which gets me to the biggest piece that I touch and I see on an everyday basis, are all of the customers that are out there, and they are seeking out, some of them for the very first time, they're seeking out those alternative channels and alternative ways to remarket their inventory. Everybody got pretty comfortable the last 18 months with everything just selling well above everyone's expectations. The money was great, the dollars coming in were strong, and it's raised that overall expectation of what they want to get back out of that vehicle. So they're less satisfied to just, again, push everything through one remarketing channel. They may look at their inventory, and they're seeking out other channels, other professionals in the industry, and saying, okay, here, this is my fleet. How do I maximize the retention on this inventory at the end? So, they are sourcing some things, like Gary said, the wrecks are still going to IA or Copart. They know the best dollars there, but they're looking for, what were previously known as the disruptors in the industry. And now those disruptors have become a resource to make sure that they're maximizing.
One thing that's been made very clear to me the last 2 years is, and it's very gratifying, it's the institutional knowledge that the leasing industry has. I mean, we do have the knowledge, we do have the tools, we do have the ability to reach in and figure out how to deal with the present marketplace. The Federal Reserve chairman has made it very clear recently that they intend to forcibly do what they must to curb rising inflation. Analysts take this as a signal that we should expect additional interest rate increases in September and October. What will rising interest rates do to the used car market, do you feel, Gary?
I think you will see a slowing of the sales that we have, but right now we're still in a lack of supply. These people still need to get from A to B. They still need to get to work. These tradesmen that are buying these used fleet vehicles coming out, they need these. These are tools. This is not a luxury to have. A pickup truck or a utility van. That's a hammer to them, and it's there to make a living for them. As far as the interest rates and the Fed, my biggest concern, and I don't think it's really on the resale of the vehicles, it's more so on the housing starts, because that's where a lot of these the used equipment and used commercial fleet vehicles are being snatched up by these journeymans, heating, AC, and housing starts we're still 35% down year over year, and without that as a catalyst to so many different markets, that's where I think we're going to be really keeping our eye on what those interest rates are going to do to those housing starts. Because if we're still not building enough housing for what the population is, we have nowhere to go with these vehicles.
What do you think, Holly, on interest rates?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're starting to feel it. We've seen some trends, but it's impacting the buyers that are out there looking, that are, you're the typical flip out of your car every 24 to 30 months because you want a new car. It comes down to want versus need. Those that need to buy a vehicle, whether, yours broke down and is just aged out and it's not repairable, or to Gary's point, if it's a contractor that has to have that cargo van to make a living, to get their employees to a job site, they're still going to buy that cargo van. They might be a little more discerning about where and what and how much they spend, and we might see them going for a unit maybe with a little bit higher mileage, at a better price point for them. But we really haven't seen yet, on the retail side, in the retail space, we haven't seen a decrease in, buying on, sub $18,000 to $20,000 vehicles and cargo and utility inventory. So, a lot of white metal trucks, vans, they still need them, and they're still out there making those purchases. And a lot of them, it's been that they've used inventory. We've seen repeat buyers come back since the beginning of COVID, and they bought that last mile delivery van 2 years ago. Well, they've run it every day for the last 2 years, and the maintenance costs are getting too high, so they're ready to trade that in on something that's a little more maintenance free and something that's a little more reliable for them. So they still are out there shopping, and again, of course, we all know that lower price inventory, those buyers are out there. So that higher mileage unit that's coming back that wouldn't have been as valuable, in the retail space prior to, the value on those has gone up. It continues to. We still, again, to Gary's point, like, we still can't match the demand on a lot of that inventory.
We've seen recently higher rates of depreciation on used vehicles. So from your sight line, do you see this continuing into the fall, that the used vehicles are going to depreciate more, Gary?
I think we're going to stay flat, honestly. Maybe 5% is what we'll experience, but the market's already pulled away from us. We're experiencing anywhere from 15 to 20% where we had reached the top of the market as far as resale dollars at the end of the first quarter, maybe a little bit into the second quarter. But those prices moved, and like I said, 15 to 20%. I think what caught us all by surprise, we're always waiting for it to adjust itself, is how fast the adjustment came. I believe that with that big of a decline in the values, I think 5% for the remainder part of the year should probably where we're going to be. And of course, the Fed's always going to be a concern, but one of the things, Holly mentioned those final mile delivery trucks, the holiday season's right around, I mean, we're probably 30 days from it. And to see what that looks like from a consumer standpoint and where their confidence is on the spending will also be another indicator on how much of that depreciation is. But right now, all things considered, as far as where the economy is, where we're at post-pandemic, globally with conflict and oil, I think we're just going to stay flat.
Holly, pricing on used vehicles this fall, what's going to happen?
Yeah, I'm with Gary. I think it's going to stay pretty flat. I think we will continue to see, some drops in, those high risk, the highline inventory, the large SUVs. Gas has come down, but it's still not down where everybody's comfortable. So, those units are depreciating. Obviously they took the biggest hit in August. I think they're going to continue, to drop a little bit ahead of, your cargo vans, your compacts, your small SUVs. And I think the rest of it's gonna settle out. I don't think we're gonna see any significant, change either way over the next 60 days. I'm hoping for a much more typical September, October. Maybe we get a little bit of a bump there at the beginning of October, and have a strong fall.
Well, I can tell you our time's got away from us. This has been so enlightening to listen to you and your ideas in what's happening. Some quick final thoughts, Gary?
It's everything with the remarketing industry. It's unique every day, and I think that's why we all get so addicted to this. What is the fleet business? Is because it is different every day. I don't know. We've all survived through the past 3 years of this pandemic, and as far as what's to see in the future, I just don't know.
Holly?
Yeah, I think the last 3 years have obviously, provide a lot of changes, a lot of opportunities for us, and it's proven the resilience of the industry. Where we've gotten creative, we've found, alternative, opportunities and ways to manage our fleets, to keep our customers, in the vehicles that they need to cycle through them, and I believe we're going to continue to do that. We don't know what the next 18 months is going to hold. Is the supply chain, shortages and issues really going to, for the most part, resolve itself? Is it going to be 3 to 5 years until we reach, regular, normal inventory coming through the channels? I think we're going to continue to see the changes, and I think I think as an industry we're prepared for that now. We've taken a lot of opportunities to, educate ourselves and to learn more, and really explore all of the options. So again, just the resilience of everyone that's in this industry and what we do, I think we'll continue to, navigate the next, 18 to 24 months and learn as we go.
Well, we're grateful for this time that you took to enlighten us. And it's the support of partners like you that enable us lessors to do what we do. And we appreciate, again, your participation today and also your support of NVLA. Our conference is coming up October 12th to 14th in Tucson. I'm going to be there. I hope everybody else will join us. And thank you to everyone viewing this webinar. We do appreciate it.